Thank you so much, and thank you to the entire community and communities of Peterborough for being here through the women leaders that are joining us here today, and of course, essential allies. The day for me is, actually, Miriam kind of stole one of my key lines here, so let me revert to it just to explain that I would not be standing here before you with the title of Senator, but for the Minister of Democratic Reform in the very first days of the Justin Trudeau government, the Honourable Marilou McPhedran. Because the selection process changed dramatically. The commitment of the Prime Minister at the time was not to follow the patronage model and not to just create essentially an echo chamber of the House of Commons, which when defined along party lines is pretty much what we had been getting for 150 plus years. I was selected to the immense shock of probably every Liberal in Winnipeg when it happened. I don't belong to any political parties. I'm a human rights lawyer and I'm a feminist activist, which means I work with them all and I fight with them all. And as a result of that, coming from Manitoba, which is Treaty 1 territory and the homeland of the Métis Nation, the fact of the matter is that as a feminist activist senator, I do get into trouble pretty regularly, sometimes with Miriam, actually. And the fact of the matter that every single day that Parliament is there, that those buildings that you see on the news, everything, the entire parliamentary precinct is on the unceded, unsurrendered territory of the Anishinaabe and Algonquin peoples. And this is something that we really have to bear in mind. I've been saying this for, this is my 10th year in the Senate, and it will be my last. And I have been criticized by some other MPs who said, you know, you shouldn't keep saying that. I'm like, it's the truth. It may make you uncomfortable, but it's the truth. So when I'm speaking with you, and I will be staying within the brief guidelines, I'm going to leave you with a couple of alerts. And apropos of what I just said about not belonging to any political party, my alerts are actually going to be about some of what's happening in Parliament that I think is a very difficult and challenging examples of what we're going to have to navigate further down the line. Right now, we're in a time when I think we've heard such eloquence from previous speakers about how serious the attacks on democracy are and how, in many cases, how successful the attacks on democracy are. So this is not to say that there needs to be a different Prime Minister for Canada right now. It is to acknowledge both the brilliance, the maturity, the flexibility of the man who currently leads this country. But I think for me, it's important to also acknowledge that he's surrounded by a troika of white, wealthy corporate men. And this makes a difference in terms of deciding what matters. And what has to happen across this country without having to completely negate the very substantial leadership we're receiving, it has to happen that voices have to question some of what is happening in our Parliament, because there are some very significant, in my opinion, undermining changes. And it's very difficult when you're a Canadian who needs a strong leader, who needs a mature leader, who needs an effective, eloquent leader, at the same time to say, no, you know, we don't have to go along with absolutely everything that is laid out. And so let me give you, in the context of the herstory of the Canadian Charter of Rights and Freedoms. I'm really old. I'm about to retire from the Senate at the age of 75, and I'm having a 50th anniversary of my law school graduating class this year. Thank you. But as a result of that, I was one of the feminists who drafted Section 28 of the Canadian Charter of Rights and Freedoms. And thank you. Like almost everything in my life, it was a fluke. It was a call at 10 o'clock at night saying, okay, the Attorney General has decided that he accepts the arguments, that there needs to be a Made in Canada Equal Rights Amendment. Decisions are going to be made tomorrow morning. Show up at the Justice Building. We're going to negotiate the wording. So that's how that happened. And I went into those negotiations with one outcome that had to be, and that was that Section 28 had to start with notwithstanding anything in this charter. All the rights and freedoms herein are guaranteed equally to male and female persons. And as the very proud mother of a queer person, a very strong leader, I will regret to the end of my days that I didn't have the understanding of how important it was to step away from the gender binary. And I wish we had done it differently. It was not part of our understanding at that point. So here, very briefly, are my warnings. So March 14th, 2025, the very first day that the Prime Minister took office, there was no Minister for Women and Gender Equality. A department that was created by law, a statutory creation. Women across this country, women's organizations mobilized. Many of us were at the Commission on the Status of Women at the UN at that time. And hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of signatures grew into thousands and thousands of signatures on a rolling petition online. And some of us had some pretty fierce conversations with those close to the Prime Minister at the time. In my case, one of them was with Gerald Butts in an airport, and I'll never forget the look on his face when I reminded him that the Liberals succeeded because of the gender gap, because women supported the Liberals and supported Prime Minister Carney. The other warning sign I want to alert you to is Bill C-5, which flew through Parliament, both the houses. It nullifies the Species at Risk Act. Amendments by Indigenous senators at 2C5 were all voted down, including to look at the danger of man camps that always occur when you have massive development of oil and gas. Bill C-12, last week, there were no witnesses in the House of Commons. It flew through the House and came over to the Senate. Some of us actively opposed it, proposed amendments. All but one were voted down in the Senate, and then the one that remained was voted down in the House of Commons. It's coming back to the Senate. And why does this matter? Time doesn't allow me to go into a lot of detail, but let me give you just one aspect of C-12. In my opinion, it's a response to the completely false alarm about immigrants in Canada, and there is a power as a result, which is now, it's royal assent, this is now law in Canada. The cabinet can have mass cancellation defined by groups, sounds a little bit like discrimination to me, of permanent resident status, mass cancellation, and also mass cancellation of applications in process. That's just one example. And so with all due respect, and I am sincere to our government, to our Prime Minister, I encourage you to pay attention to some of these signs, because it's going to be the women of this country and their allies who are going to be able to raise the questions, bring the clear-eyed analysis, the honest analysis, and bring about changes, increase the accountability that a democracy needs. Thank you. Merci. Miigwech.